California hides more than it reveals. Beneath its golden beaches, sprawling cities, and towering redwoods lie secrets that predate Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and even the gold rush by thousands of years. Ancient stone walls that shouldn't exist. Rock carvings older than the pyramids. Giants buried in desert sands. Lost civilizations that vanish without explanation. This isn't some New Age fantasy or conspiracy theory. These are real archaeological puzzles that have stumped scientists, baffled researchers, and left even the most skeptical minds scratching their heads. From the fog-wrapped forests of the North Coast to the sun-baked deserts of the Mojave, the Golden State is littered with mysteries that science still can't explain. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand why California might be hiding the most important archaeological secrets in North America. Secrets that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about who lived here first. Deep in the Mojave Desert, where the heat shimmers off ancient lake beds and the silence stretches for miles, there's a place that shouldn't exist according to everything mainstream archaeology tells us about human history in the Americas. It's called the Calico Early Man site, and it sits like a time bomb in the barren hills of San Bernardino County, waiting to explode our understanding of when humans first walked on this continent. The story begins in the 1960s with a name that carries serious weight in archaeological circles: Louis Leakey. The same guy who revolutionized our understanding of human evolution in Africa, who discovered some of the oldest human ancestors on the planet. When Leakey showed up in the Mojave Desert in 1963, people paid attention. But what he found there would spark a controversy that's still raging today. The site looks like nothing special at first glance. Just another dry hillside covered in desert scrub and scattered stones. But Leakey saw something different. He saw what he believed were stone tools. Not just any stone tools, but ones that could be over 200,000 years old. That's 4 times older than the oldest accepted evidence of humans in North America. It's a claim so radical that it would rewrite the entire story of human migration to the New World. But here's where it gets interesting and controversial. The tools Leakey and his team found don't look like the sophisticated spear points and arrowheads we associate with early Native Americans. They're crude, basic implements. Choppers, scrapers, simple blades. The kind of tools that early humans made in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago. The kind that would make perfect sense if people had been living in California a lot longer than anyone thought possible. The geological evidence seemed to support Leakey's claims. The tools were found in sediment layers that dated back to the Pleistocene epoch, buried beneath deposits that formed during ancient climate changes. The stratigraphy, the scientific study of rock layers, suggested these artifacts had been sitting undisturbed for tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands. But mainstream archaeology wasn't buying it. The criticism came fast and harsh. Other scientists argued that what Leakey was calling tools were just naturally broken rocks. The desert is full of them, they said. Wind, water, and geological forces can fracture stone in ways that look deliberate but are actually random. The patterns Leakey saw as evidence of human workmanship, his critics dismissed as wishful thinking. The debate split the archaeological community down the middle. On one side, you had respected researchers who looked at the evidence and saw genuine human artifacts. On the other, equally respected scientists who saw nothing but broken rocks and overeager interpretation. Both sides had valid points, and neither could definitively prove the other wrong. What makes this even more intriguing is the location itself. The Mojave Desert 200,000 years ago was a very different place. Instead of the harsh, dry landscape we see today, it was dotted with lakes and rivers. The climate was cooler, wetter, and more hospitable to human life. If early people were going to survive anywhere in prehistoric California, this would have been the place to do it. Excavations continued for decades. The team collected thousands of specimens, each one carefully cataloged and studied. Some showed clear signs of what appeared to be human modification. Others were more ambiguous. The deeper they dug, the older the potential tools became. Some were found in geological contexts that suggested they could be 300,000 years old or more. But the controversy never died down. For every supporter who looked at the evidence and saw proof of ancient human occupation, there was a skeptic who saw natural processes creating tool-like shapes through pure chance. The academic papers flew back and forth. Conferences turned into battlegrounds. Careers were made and broken on interpretations of fractured stone. The problem is, this kind of evidence is inherently ambiguous. Unlike pottery or metal tools, which are clearly human-made, stone implements can be tricky to identify, especially when they're very old and very simple. The line between a deliberately shaped tool and a naturally fractured rock isn't always clear, even to experts. Modern technology has added new dimensions to the debate. Microscopic analysis can reveal where patterns that might indicate tool use. Computer modeling can test whether certain fracture patterns are more likely to result from human activity or natural processes. But even these advanced techniques haven't settled the question definitively. Today, the Calico site remains one of the most controversial archaeological locations in North America. The official position of mainstream archaeology is that the evidence is inconclusive at best, fraudulent at worst. But the site hasn't been abandoned. Researchers continue to work there, continue to find specimens that might, just might, prove that humans were living in California far earlier than anyone ever imagined. The implications are staggering. If Leakey was right, if those stone tools really are evidence of human occupation 200,000 years ago, then everything we think we know about the peopling of the Americas is wrong. The standard model says humans first arrived in North America maybe 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, crossing from Asia over a land bridge that connected Siberia to Alaska during the last ice age. But 200,000-year-old tools in California would push that date back by more than 10 times. That would mean humans were living in the Americas before modern humans had even evolved in Africa. It would mean that either our understanding of human evolution is completely wrong or that earlier species of humans, maybe Homo erectus or the Neanderthals, somehow made it to North America long before our own species existed. It's the kind of discovery that would rewrite textbooks, reshape our understanding of prehistory, and probably win someone a Nobel Prize. Or it's the kind of mistake that shows how easy it is to see patterns that aren't really there, to find evidence for what we want to believe rather than what actually happened. The truth is, we may never know for sure. The Calico site exists in that uncomfortable space between breakthrough and blunder, between revolutionary discovery and wishful thinking. But that's what makes it so fascinating. In the sun-baked hills of the Mojave, scattered among the desert stones, there might be evidence that changes everything we thought we knew about California's past. Or there might just be rocks that look important to people who want them to be important. Either way, the mystery endures. And in a state built on dreams and possibilities, maybe that's exactly as it should be. The Mount Shasta Lemurian legend. Rising 14,179 feet above the Sacramento Valley, Mount Shasta dominates the Northern California landscape like a cosmic antenna reaching toward the stars. This massive volcanic peak, draped in glaciers and often crowned with mysterious lenticular clouds, has attracted spiritual seekers, UFO enthusiasts, and believers in ancient civilizations for over a century. But the mountain's most persistent mystery isn't geological. It's the legend of Lemuria and the lost civilizations supposedly living beneath its peaks. The story begins in the late 1800s with Frederick Spencer Oliver, a teenager from Wairika who claimed to have channeled the memories of an Atlantean priest. Oliver's book, A Dweller on Two Planets, described advanced civilizations that once flourished on lost continents before cataclysmic events forced their survivors underground. According to Oliver, some of these survivors established a hidden city beneath Mount Shasta, where they continued to develop advanced technology and spiritual knowledge far beyond anything known to surface dwellers. The Lemurian legend gained momentum in the 1930s through the writings of Guy Ballard, founder of the I Am movement. Ballard claimed to have encountered the ascended Master Saint Germain while hiking on Mount Shasta, receiving teachings about ancient civilizations and cosmic wisdom. Ballard's descriptions of tall, ethereal beings living in crystal cities beneath the mountain captured the imagination of spiritual seekers during the Great Depression, offering hope and wonder during difficult times. But the Mount Shasta Lemurian legend isn't just modern New Age fantasy. It incorporates elements that echo much older Native American traditions about the mountain. Local tribes, including the Wintu, Karuk, and Shasta peoples, have always considered the peak sacred, a place where the physical and spiritual worlds intersect. Their stories speak of powerful beings dwelling on the mountain, supernatural encounters, and portals to other dimensions. Sightings and unexplained phenomena continue to this day. Visitors report seeing tall, robed figures moving through the forests, strange lights emanating from the mountain slopes, and encounters with beings who seem human but possess unusual features or abilities. Some claim to have discovered hidden entrances to underground tunnels, though none have ever been verified or documented by researchers. The mountain's geology adds another layer to the mystery. Mount Shasta sits at the junction of several major fault systems and volcanic chains, creating unusual electromagnetic conditions that some researchers believe could account for the strange phenomena reported there. The mountain's massive bulk also affects local weather patterns, creating the distinctive lenticular clouds that often hover around its peak like cosmic spacecraft. Geologically, Mount Shasta is complex enough to hide secrets. The mountain is actually 4 overlapping volcanic cones built up over hundreds of thousands of years of eruptions. Lava tubes, caves, and underground chambers riddle the peak's interior, creating spaces where hypothetical underground civilizations could theoretically exist, though no evidence has ever been found. The Lemurian legend persists because Mount Shasta feels different from other mountains. Standing in its shadow, feeling the weight of its presence and the subtle energy that seems to emanate from its glaciated peaks, even skeptics can understand why the mountain has inspired so many stories of hidden civilizations and cosmic mysteries. Whether those stories reflect objective reality or simply the human need to believe in something greater than ourselves remains one of California's most enduring puzzles. The Berkeley Hills stone walls. Drive through the hills above Berkeley and Oakland on a foggy morning, and you might catch glimpses of something that doesn't belong. Stone walls, dry-laid and weathered, snaking through the eucalyptus groves and oak woodlands like ancient boundaries marking territories that no longer exist. Most Bay Area residents have never noticed them. They're hidden behind suburban developments, forgotten in regional parks, obscured by decades of overgrowth. But they're there, miles and miles of them, and nobody knows who built them or why. These aren't your typical California ranch walls or property markers. They're older, stranger, and far more extensive than anything that makes sense in the context of local history. Some stretch for hundreds of yards through terrain that would have been backbreaking to build on. Others form complex patterns, intersecting and branching like a road system designed by people who understood the landscape in ways we've forgotten. The walls first caught serious attention in the early 1900s, when urban development began pushing into the hills and construction crews kept running into these mysterious stone barriers. Local historians tried to make sense of them. Were they built by Spanish colonists? Mission Indians? Early American settlers? But none of the explanations held up under scrutiny. Spanish colonial records from the Bay Area don't mention any large-scale stone wall construction. The mission system relied primarily on adobe and wood construction, not the dry stone masonry found in the hills. And the walls don't follow the typical patterns of Spanish land grants or ranch boundaries. They seem to follow older logic, contouring with ridgelines and watersheds in ways that suggest their builders thought about the landscape very differently than European colonists. Native American construction is another possibility, but it's problematic too. The local Ohlone and other Bay Area tribes didn't typically build permanent stone structures. Their architecture was mostly temporary, designed for seasonal movement and resource gathering. The few stone structures associated with California Indians tend to be small and ceremonial, not the extensive wall systems found in the East Bay Hills. Early American settlers are the most likely suspects from a historical perspective, but their explanations don't work either. The walls don't correlate with property lines from the Gold Rush era or later agricultural development. They don't follow logical patterns for livestock management or boundary marking. And many are built in locations that would have been virtually inaccessible to 19th century farmers with their tools and transportation methods. What makes the walls even more mysterious is their construction technique. They're built using a dry stone method that requires considerable skill and knowledge. The stones are carefully selected and fitted together without mortar, relying on weight, friction, and precise placement to maintain stability. It's a technique that suggests the builders had extensive experience with this type of construction, possibly learned over generations. Some of the walls incorporate massive boulders that would have required considerable manpower to move and position. Others use smaller stones fitted together with almost mathematical precision. The workmanship varies from section to section, suggesting either different builders or construction that took place over extended periods. The patterns the walls form are equally puzzling. Some appear to be defensive, following ridgelines in ways that would control access to high ground. Others seem agricultural, creating terraces and enclosures that could have been used for cultivation or animal management. Still others follow no obvious functional pattern at all, meandering through the landscape like they were built for purposes we can't understand. Dr. Russell Tall, a mathematician and amateur archaeologist who spent decades studying the walls, documented over 50 miles of stone construction in the Berkeley Hills alone. His surveys revealed complex networks of interconnected walls, some forming geometric patterns that suggest sophisticated planning and surveying capabilities. Tall's work also revealed that the walls extend far beyond the Berkeley Hills. Similar construction can be found throughout the Bay Area, from Marin County to the Santa Cruz Mountains. The total extent of the wall systems may be hundreds of miles, making it one of the largest prehistoric construction projects in California, if it is indeed prehistoric. Carbon dating has been attempted on organic material found within some walls, but the results have been inconclusive. Some samples suggested the walls could be several hundred years old, predating European contact. Others indicated more recent construction. The problem is that organic material can infiltrate stone walls long after construction, making accurate dating extremely difficult. Geographic Information System mapping has revealed that many of the walls align with astronomical phenomena. Some follow solar alignments that mark important seasonal transitions. Others correspond to lunar cycles or stellar patterns. This suggests that whoever built the walls had sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and possibly used the structures for ceremonial or calendrical purposes. But the astronomical alignments could also be coincidental. The Bay Area's topography naturally creates ridgelines and valley systems that align with celestial events. Ancient builders, following practical considerations like elevation, drainage, and defensive positions, might have accidentally created astronomically significant patterns. Modern archaeologists have struggled with the Berkeley Hills walls because they don't fit neatly into established frameworks for understanding California prehistory. They're too extensive and sophisticated to be dismissed as minor curiosities, but they don't match any known Native American architectural traditions in the region. Some researchers have proposed that the walls were built by pre-Columbian visitors to California. Polynesian navigators, Chinese explorers, or even displaced peoples from other parts of the Americas could have brought stone-building techniques to the Bay Area centuries before European contact. But there's no hard evidence for any of these possibilities, and they require accepting the existence of transoceanic contact that most archaeologists consider unlikely. The mystery deepens when you consider the wall's preservation. Stone construction in California faces constant challenges from earthquakes, landslides, and erosion. The fact that these walls have survived suggests either recent construction or remarkably stable building techniques. Some sections show clear signs of modern repair or reconstruction, indicating that someone has been maintaining them within living memory. Local Native American communities have different perspectives on the walls. Some Ohlone descendants acknowledge that their ancestors built stone structures, but not on the scale found in the Berkeley Hills. Others suggest that the walls might be associated with spiritual practices or territorial markers that weren't part of the typical archaeological record. Today, most of the walls are protected within regional parks and open space preserves, but they remain largely unstudied and poorly understood. The East Bay Regional Park District acknowledges their existence but has no official position on their origins or significance. They're simply part of the landscape, ancient enough to be mysterious, common enough to be ignored. Walking along these walls on a quiet afternoon, with fog drifting through the oak trees and the distant hum of Bay Area traffic barely audible, you can feel the weight of unanswered questions. The stones fit together with a precision that speaks of careful planning and skilled execution. The routes they follow suggest intimate knowledge of the terrain, awareness of seasonal water sources, understanding of prevailing wind patterns. Someone put enormous effort into building these walls. They moved thousands of tons of stone, shaped and fitted each piece, created structures designed to last centuries. They did this work in one of the most beautiful landscapes in North America, high in the hills above one of the world's great natural harbors. But we don't know who they were when they lived or what they were trying to achieve. The Berkeley Hills stone walls remain one of California's most persistent archaeological mysteries, hiding in plain sight above one of the most densely populated areas in the state. They're a reminder that even in our modern, connected world, the past can keep its secrets. And maybe that's appropriate. In a region that's been at the forefront of technological revolution for decades, where the future seems to be invented daily, these ancient walls provide a connection to deeper time, to the possibility that our understanding of California's past is far from complete. The Chumash Painted Cave. In the rugged sandstone hills north of Santa Barbara, where coastal fog meets inland heat and ancient oak trees cast twisted shadows, there's a cave that holds one of the most sophisticated astronomical calendars ever created in prehistoric North America. The Chumash called it a sacred place, a repository of cosmic knowledge that connected their earthly existence to the movements of the heavens. Today, we call it Painted Cave, and despite decades of study, it continues to reveal secrets that challenge our understanding of Native American science and spirituality. The cave itself is not impressive from the outside. A modest opening in a sandstone cliff, barely large enough for a person to crouch inside, hidden among the chaparral and scrub oak that cover these coastal mountains. But step inside, and you enter a different world entirely. The walls and ceiling are covered with intricate paintings in red, black, and white pigments, geometric patterns and representational figures that seem to dance in the flickering light of a flashlight or torch. At first glance, the paintings appear abstract, maybe even random. Circles intersect with lines, spirals connect to cross-hatched patterns, human-like figures merge with star-like designs. But look closer, study the relationships between the elements, and a different picture emerges. This isn't random decoration or simple storytelling. This is sophisticated astronomical observation encoded in mineral pigments and carefully planned compositions. The Chumash were master astronomers long before European contact. Their society depended on precise knowledge of seasonal cycles for timing fishing expeditions, acorn harvests, and ceremonial activities. They tracked the movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars with accuracy that rivaled European astronomical traditions. And Painted Cave was one of their most important observatories. The cave's entrance is perfectly positioned to capture specific celestial events. During the winter solstice, sunlight enters the cave at precisely the right angle to illuminate certain painted elements. Summer solstice brings different lighting patterns that highlight other portions of the artwork. Equinoxes create their own unique illumination sequences, turning the cave into a living calendar that marks the most important transitions of the year. But the sophistication goes far beyond simple solar observations. Some of the painted elements appear to track lunar cycles, including the complex 18.6-year pattern of lunar standstills that requires generations of careful observation to understand fully. Other designs might represent planetary movements, eclipses, or the precession of star patterns over centuries. Dr. Travis Hudson, an anthropologist who spent decades studying Chumash astronomy, documented dozens of specific correlations between cave paintings and celestial events. His work revealed that the Chumash had identified and tracked astronomical phenomena that European science didn't recognize until the development of advanced telescopes and mathematical models. The paintings themselves are masterworks of prehistoric art. The pigments were made from local minerals: red ochre from iron oxide, black from manganese compounds, white from diatomaceous earth. These materials were ground into fine powders and mixed with organic binders to create paints that have lasted for centuries in the cave's protected environment. The application techniques show extraordinary skill and planning. Some designs were painted with brushes made from animal hair or plant fibers. Others were applied with fingers or even blown through hollow reeds to create spray paint effects. The artists worked in cramped conditions, often lying on their backs or contorting their bodies to reach difficult areas of the cave walls and ceiling. Carbon dating of organic materials found in the paint layers suggests the cave was used for astronomical observation and artistic creation over several centuries, with some paintings possibly dating back 1,000 years or more. But radiocarbon dating of cave art is notoriously difficult, and the true age of the oldest paintings remains uncertain. What's clear is that the cave represented a culmination of Chumash astronomical knowledge. The paintings aren't just records of celestial observations, they're sophisticated calculational tools that allowed astronomers to predict future events and maintain accurate calendars across generations. The cave functioned as both observatory and library, preserving crucial information about the cycles that governed Chumash life. The spiritual dimensions of the cave are equally important. Chumash cosmology was deeply astronomical, with celestial events directly connected to spiritual beliefs and ceremonial practices. The cave paintings don't just track the movements of celestial bodies, they map the spiritual geography of the universe as the Chumash understood it. Some of the human-like figures in the paintings may represent supernatural beings associated with specific stars or constellations. The geometric patterns could be maps of spiritual journeys or representations of the pathways that souls follow after death. The entire cave might have served as a kind of cosmic portal, a place where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds became permeable. Unfortunately, much of the deeper meaning of the paintings has been lost. The Chumash astronomical traditions were disrupted by Spanish colonization and the mission system, which suppressed Native American spiritual practices and forced conversion to Christianity. The astronomers and artists who created and maintained Painted Cave died without passing on their complete knowledge to future generations. Modern Chumash descendants work to reconstruct their ancestral astronomical traditions, combining archaeological evidence with surviving oral histories and comparison with other Native American skywatching cultures. Their work has revealed the true sophistication of prehistoric Chumash science and provided new insights into how the Painted Cave functioned as an astronomical instrument. But significant mysteries remain. Some painted elements don't correspond to any known celestial phenomena or survive interpretative frameworks. They might represent astronomical events that we haven't identified, spiritual concepts that don't translate easily into modern understanding, or observational techniques that we haven't discovered yet. The preservation of Painted Cave presents ongoing challenges. The site is protected as a state historic park, but the paintings are vulnerable to vandalism, environmental damage, and the simple passage of time. Visitor access is strictly limited to prevent damage from human contact, but even careful scientific study poses risks to these irreplaceable artworks. Advanced documentation techniques are helping preserve the cave's knowledge for future generations. High-resolution photography, 3D scanning, and spectral analysis are creating detailed records of every painted element and revealing details invisible to the naked eye. These technological tools are uncovering new layers of meaning in the ancient artworks and providing insights into Chumash artistic techniques. Climate change adds another dimension of concern. Changes in temperature and humidity patterns could accelerate the deterioration of the mineral pigments and the sandstone surfaces that support them. The delicate microenvironment that has preserved these paintings for centuries could be disrupted by even small changes in regional weather patterns. Standing inside Painted Cave today, surrounded by these ancient astronomical calculations and spiritual maps, you can feel the weight of accumulated knowledge and the tragedy of its partial loss. The Chumash astronomers who worked in this cave possessed sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics that took European scientists centuries to develop. They encoded this knowledge in artworks of extraordinary beauty and complexity, creating a synthesis of science and spirituality that few cultures have achieved. The cave represents one of the highest achievements of Native American astronomy and art, a testament to the intellectual sophistication of cultures that are too often dismissed as primitive or simple. It's a reminder that scientific knowledge and artistic expression can be inseparably linked, that the boundaries between objective observation and spiritual understanding aren't always clear or necessary. But it's also a mystery that continues to challenge our interpretations and assumptions. Every new analysis reveals additional layers of meaning. Every technological advance uncovers previously invisible details. Every conversation with Chumash descendants adds new perspectives on the cave's significance. In the hills above Santa Barbara, where the Pacific Ocean meets the mountains and the modern world presses against ancient landscapes, Painted Cave continues to guard its secrets while slowly revealing them to those patient enough to look and humble enough to learn. It's a place where time layers like sediment, where thousand-year-old knowledge speaks to contemporary scientists, where art and science merge into something larger than either could achieve alone. The Koso Rock Art District. In the heart of the Mojave Desert, where the mountains rise like broken teeth from the valley floor and the silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat, lies one of the most extraordinary concentrations of ancient rock art in the world. The Koso Rock Art District, spread across the volcanic landscape near China Lake and Ridgecrest, contains over 100,000 individual petroglyphs carved into dark basalt boulders over thousands of years. It's a prehistoric gallery that covers hundreds of square miles, a testament to human creativity and spiritual expression that few people will ever see. The reason most people will never visit Koso is simple. It's located within the China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station, one of the most restricted military installations in the United States. The same isolation that has protected these ancient artworks from vandalism and development has also kept them hidden from public view. Only a handful of researchers, military personnel, and specially authorized visitors have ever seen the full scope of this archaeological treasure. But those who have seen it describe an experience that borders on the mystical. Imagine walking through a landscape that looks like the surface of Mars, all volcanic rock and sparse desert vegetation, and suddenly encountering boulder after boulder covered with intricate carvings. Bighorn sheep leap across the stone surfaces, their bodies rendered with anatomical precision that shows intimate knowledge of animal behavior and anatomy. Human figures dance, hunt, and perform ceremonies that we can only guess at. Geometric patterns create complex relationships between representational images, suggesting mathematical understanding and symbolic systems we're only beginning to decipher. The sheer scale of Koso is staggering. This isn't a single site or even a cluster of sites. It's an entire landscape transformed into an artistic statement. The petroglyphs are found on canyon walls, boulder fields, and isolated rock outcroppings across an area roughly the size of Rhode Island. Some individual boulders contain hundreds of images layered on top of each other, created over centuries of repeated visits and artistic additions. Bighorn sheep dominate the imagery, comprising more than half of all identifiable figures at Koso. These aren't simple drawings, they're sophisticated artistic representations that capture the essence of these desert animals in ways that suggest deep spiritual and practical relationships. The sheep are shown in every conceivable pose: grazing, running, fighting, mating, caring for young. Some are rendered realistically, others stylized or transformed into supernatural beings with human characteristics or impossible anatomical features. The prominence of bighorn sheep in Koso art isn't accidental. These animals were crucial to desert survival, providing meat, hides, bone tools, and horn implements. But their significance went far beyond practical utility. Bighorn sheep were spiritual beings in many Native American traditions, associated with rainmaking ceremonies, hunting magic, and shamanic practices. The sheep could climb the steepest cliffs and navigate the most dangerous terrain, making them symbols of power, agility, and connection between the earthly and spiritual realms. But Koso contains much more than sheep. Human figures appear in various styles and contexts, from simple stick figures to elaborate ceremonial representations. Some wear headdresses or carry ceremonial objects. Others are shown in hunting scenes or ritual activities. A few appear to be transforming into animals or supernatural beings, suggesting shamanic trance states or mythological narratives. Geometric patterns add another layer of complexity to the site. Circles, spirals, crosshatch designs, and linear patterns create relationships between the representational images that might encode astronomical observations, calendrical information, or spiritual concepts. Some researchers believe these geometric elements represent clan markers, territorial boundaries, or maps of seasonal migration routes. The dating of Koso petroglyphs has been one of the most challenging aspects of studying the site. Rock art is notoriously difficult to date directly, since the carving process removes organic material that could be radiocarbon dated. Researchers have had to rely on indirect methods, dating organic materials found beneath or on top of petroglyphs, analyzing changes in artistic styles over time, and correlating imagery with datable archaeological deposits nearby. These indirect dating methods suggest that Koso was used for rock art creation over a very long period, possibly spanning 10,000 years or more. The oldest petroglyphs might date to the end of the last ice age, when the Mojave Desert was much wetter and supported different plant and animal communities. The most recent additions could be only a few hundred years old, created by the ancestors of contemporary Native American communities in the region. This long timeline is visible in the layering and superimposition of images. Older petroglyphs show different artistic styles and subject matter than newer ones. Some ancient images have been incorporated into later compositions, suggesting continuity of use and meaning across centuries. Others have been deliberately obscured or modified, indicating changes in the cultural significance of particular locations or symbols. The techniques used to create Koso petroglyphs varied over time and between different areas of the site. Most were created by pecking, using stone hammers to chip away at the dark desert varnish that coats basalt surfaces, revealing lighter rock underneath. Others were incised with sharp tools, creating fine lines and delicate details. Some appear to have been ground or abraded, creating broad areas of texture and tone. The skill levels represented at Koso range from crude scratches that might have been made by children or novices to masterworks of prehistoric art that rival anything created in other parts of the world. Some petroglyphs show evidence of careful planning and preparation, with guidelines pecked into the rock surface before the final images were created. Others appear more spontaneous, as if the artists were responding to the natural shapes and textures of the rock surfaces. The spiritual significance of Koso is evident in its location and context. Many of the most elaborate petroglyph panels are found in places that would have been significant in Native American spiritual geography: high peaks with commanding views, hidden canyons with year-round water sources, distinctive rock formations that might have been considered sacred. Some panels are positioned to be illuminated by the rising or setting sun at specific times of year, suggesting astronomical alignments and ceremonial use. Contemporary Native American communities, particularly the Kawaisui, Panamint Shoshone, and Owens Valley Paiute, maintain cultural connections to Koso and consider it a sacred site. Their oral traditions preserve stories about the creation of the petroglyphs and their spiritual significance, though much of this knowledge is kept private within tribal communities. Tribal representatives work with researchers and military personnel to ensure that study and protection of the site respects Native American cultural values and religious practices. The military's role in protecting Koso has been largely positive, if unintentional. The restriction of access has prevented the vandalism and tourist damage that has destroyed rock art sites throughout the American West. Military personnel have generally been respectful of the cultural significance of the petroglyphs and have cooperated with researchers and tribal representatives in documentation and protection efforts. But the military setting also creates unique challenges. The landscape around Koso is used for weapons testing and training exercises that can create vibrations, noise, and other disturbances that might affect the stability of the petroglyphs. Some areas of the rock art district are off-limits even to researchers because of unexploded ordnance or classified military activities. Recent technological advances have revolutionized the study of Koso petroglyphs. High-resolution digital photography can capture details invisible to the naked eye and create permanent records of images that might be deteriorating. 3D scanning and photogrammetry can document the three-dimensional relationships between petroglyphs and their rock surfaces, providing insights into how the artists used natural features in their compositions. Portable X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy can analyze the mineral composition of rock varnish and determine how long surfaces have been exposed since they were carved. This technology is providing the first direct dates for some Koso petroglyphs and revealing unexpected patterns in the timing and distribution of rock art creation. Geographic Information Systems mapping is revealing large-scale patterns in the distribution of different petroglyph styles and subjects across the Koso landscape. This analysis suggests that different areas of the site might have been used by different cultural groups or for different ceremonial purposes over time. Climate data and paleo-environmental reconstruction are providing context for understanding how changes in desert environments might have influenced rock art creation at Koso. Periods of increased moisture might have brought more people and animals to the area, leading to bursts of artistic activity. Drought periods might have concentrated populations around permanent water sources, creating different patterns of site use and artistic expression. Despite decades of study, Koso continues to reveal new mysteries and challenge existing interpretations. The site is so large and complex that comprehensive documentation will take generations to complete. Every new survey discovers previously unknown petroglyph panels, and every new analytical technique reveals additional layers of meaning in familiar images. The greatest mystery of Koso might be its overall purpose and meaning. Why did people invest so much time and effort in creating rock art in this remote desert location? Was it primarily religious, artistic, practical, or some combination of all three? How did the site function within larger patterns of desert life and seasonal migration? What stories and beliefs are encoded in the geometric patterns and animal figures that cover thousands of boulders? These questions keep researchers returning to Koso, keep tribal communities engaged in protecting and interpreting the site, keep the mystery alive in one of the most extraordinary archaeological landscapes in North America. In the Mojave Desert, where silence and space stretch to the horizon, ancient artists created a testament to human creativity and spiritual expression that continues to inspire and puzzle us thousands of years later. Arlington Springs Man. On a windswept island 27 miles off the Santa Barbara coast, where Channel Island foxes dart between coastal sage and elephant seals haul out on rocky beaches, archaeologists made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about the first Californians. It was 1959, and a paleontologist named Phil was exploring the sea cliffs of Santa Rosa Island when he spotted something that didn't belong: human bones, ancient ones, eroding from a slope that hadn't seen rain in months. What Orr found became known as Arlington Springs Man, and the implications were staggering. These weren't just old bones. They were some of the oldest human remains ever discovered in North America, dating back over 13,000 years. But here's the thing that keeps archaeologists awake at night. If people were living on the Channel Islands 13,000 years ago, they had to get there somehow. And that somewhere was across 27 miles of open ocean. Think about that for a moment. While mainstream archaeology tells us that the first Americans walked across a land bridge from Asia, Arlington Springs Man suggests something far more incredible. These early Californians were accomplished seafarers, navigating dangerous waters in boats sophisticated enough to carry entire families, their supplies, and probably their dogs across one of the most treacherous stretches of water on the Pacific coast. The Channel Islands have never been connected to the mainland, not even during the lowest sea levels of the Ice Age. Anyone who lived there had to arrive by boat, and not just once. Archaeological evidence suggests continuous human occupation of the islands for thousands of years, which means regular back-and-forth travel, trade, and communication across open water. This wasn't a one-time accidental voyage. This was a maritime culture that predates anything similar in the Old World. But Arlington Springs Man raises more questions than answers. The bones were found in association with dwarf mammoth remains, suggesting these early islanders were hunting animals that existed nowhere else on Earth. The Channel Islands once supported a unique ecosystem of pygmy mammoths, giant mice, and flightless ducks, species that had evolved in isolation for hundreds of thousands of years. The arrival of humans coincided with the extinction of most of these endemic species, but whether people caused these extinctions or simply witnessed them remains hotly debated. Recent analysis using advanced dating techniques has refined the age of Arlington Springs Man to about 13,000 years, making him roughly contemporary with the earliest evidence of human occupation elsewhere in North America. But the maritime implications remain revolutionary. If people were sophisticated enough to regularly cross to the Channel Islands 13,000 years ago, they might have been following coastal routes to reach the Americas, island hopping down the Pacific Rim rather than walking across the Bering Land Bridge. The discovery has profound implications for understanding California's first inhabitants. These weren't simple hunter-gatherers struggling to survive in a new land. They were skilled mariners with advanced boat-building technology, detailed knowledge of ocean conditions, and the courage to venture far from sight of land. They represent a level of maritime sophistication that most archaeologists didn't think existed in the Americas until thousands of years later. Blythe Intaglios. In the scorching desert near the Colorado River, where the Arizona and California borders blur in heat waves and the silence stretches for miles, enormous figures are carved into the earth itself. The Blythe Intaglios, or geoglyphs, are so large they can only be fully appreciated from the air, their forms emerging from the desert floor like messages from another world. There are 6 main figures scattered across several sites, but the largest is breathtaking in its scope. A human form stretching 171 feet from head to toe, arms outstretched as if embracing the sky. Nearby, other figures include animals that might be mountain lions or dogs, geometric shapes, and spirals that seem to dance across the desert pavement. These weren't painted or built up. They were created by carefully removing darker surface stones to reveal lighter sediment beneath, a technique that required precise planning and enormous amounts of coordinated labor. The intaglios were created by the ancestors of the Mojave, Quechan, and Chemehuevi peoples, probably between 900 BCE and 1200 CE, though some might be much older. But their purpose remains largely mysterious to outsiders. What we do know comes from tribal oral traditions, which describe the figures as representations of Mastamho, a creation deity who shaped the Colorado River and taught people how to live in the desert. But the scale and effort required to create these geoglyphs suggests they were more than simple religious art. The largest figures would have required dozens of people working in coordination, possibly using surveying techniques to maintain proper proportions across such vast distances. The sites were chosen carefully, positioned on elevated terraces where they would be visible from multiple directions and protected from flash flooding. The preservation of the Blythe Intaglios is miraculous. In a region where off-road vehicles and development threaten countless archaeological sites, these geoglyphs have survived largely intact for over 1,000 years. The desert environment that created them also protects them. The arid climate prevents vegetation from obscuring the figures, while the stable desert pavement resists erosion and disturbance. Today, the Intaglios are protected as a National Historic Landmark, but they remain vulnerable to vandalism and accidental damage. Visitors who don't understand their significance sometimes drive across them or add their own markings, slowly erasing details that took ancient artists generations to perfect. The figures that once spoke clearly across the desert now whisper, their voices growing fainter with each passing year. The Pinnacles Talus Caves. In the rugged landscape east of Salinas, where volcanic spires rise from golden grasslands and California condors ride the thermals, lies a maze of caves that shouldn't exist. The Pinnacles Talus Caves were created not by water or volcanic activity, but by massive boulders that tumbled into narrow canyons and wedged against each other, creating dark passageways and hidden chambers beneath the surface. But these aren't just geological curiosities. Archaeological evidence suggests that native peoples used the caves for thousands of years, possibly for ceremonies, shelter, or spiritual practices. The caves maintain constant cool temperatures even during scorching Central Valley summers, and their echoing chambers create unique acoustic properties that might have been important for ritual activities. The caves formed through a process geologists call gravitational collapse. As the Pinnacles' volcanic rocks weathered and fractured, enormous boulders broke away from the towering spires and rolled down into the narrow canyons below. Over thousands of years, these boulders accumulated in the canyon bottoms, creating complex three-dimensional puzzles where rocks balance precariously against each other. What makes the Pinnacles caves mysterious isn't their formation, but what might be hidden within them. The cave systems are extensive and largely unexplored, with passages that extend for unknown distances beneath the boulder fields. Some chambers are large enough to hold dozens of people, while others are so narrow that explorers must crawl on their bellies to pass through. Archaeological investigations have been limited by the cave's dangerous and unstable nature. The same boulder formations that create the passages could collapse without warning, trapping or crushing anyone inside. But limited excavations have revealed evidence of human use, fire-blackened rocks, stone tools, and organic materials that suggest the caves were visited regularly by prehistoric peoples. The acoustic properties of the caves add another dimension to their mystery. Sound behaves strangely in the boulder-choked chambers, with whispers carrying great distances while shouts are muffled and distorted. Some chambers create echo effects that could transform human voices into supernatural sounds, possibly explaining why many cave systems worldwide are associated with spiritual practices and mythological beliefs. Native American oral traditions from the region include stories about the Pinnacles area, describing it as a place of power where spirits dwelled and important ceremonies were conducted. While specific details about cave use aren't preserved in surviving traditions, the archaeological evidence suggests these stories might reflect actual historical practices. Today, most of the Pinnacles caves are closed to public access due to safety concerns and the presence of endangered bat colonies that use the caves for roosting. The few caves that remain open require permits and experienced guides, limiting access to serious researchers and experienced cavers. The caves represent one of California's most unusual archaeological environments, places where human history and geological processes intersect in ways that create both opportunities and mysteries. Beneath the towering volcanic spires, in chambers lit only by flashlights and headlamps, the echoes of ancient voices might still linger, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. From the controversial stone tools of Calico to the perfect spheres of Jalama Beach, from the maritime sophistication of Arlington Springs man to the underground legends of Mount Shasta, California's ancient mysteries paint a picture of the past that's far more complex and fascinating than most textbooks suggest. These aren't just curiosities or tourist attractions, they're windows into chapters of human history that we're only beginning to understand. What emerges from this journey through California's archaeological puzzles is a sense that our understanding of the past is far from complete. Every mystery we've explored challenges conventional wisdom in some way, whether it's pushing back the timeline of human arrival in the Americas, revealing unexpected levels of technological sophistication among ancient peoples, or suggesting spiritual and astronomical knowledge that rivals our own. The Berkeley Hills stone walls remind us that impressive construction projects can be hidden in plain sight, even in one of the most densely populated regions of the state. The Chumash painted cave demonstrates that sophisticated scientific knowledge and artistic expression often went hand in hand in prehistoric cultures. But perhaps the most important lesson from these mysteries is humility. California's archaeological record is constantly revealing new surprises, challenging our assumptions, and reminding us how much we still don't know about the people who lived here before us. Every new discovery has the potential to rewrite textbooks, shift paradigms, and force us to reconsider everything we thought we understood about California's past. The state that gave us Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and the gold rush has an even more dramatic story to tell, one written in stone tools and cave paintings, in mysterious walls and perfect spheres, in the bones of ancient mariners and the legends that still echo through sacred mountains. These mysteries aren't just academic puzzles, they're invitations to see California with new eyes, to recognize that beneath our modern landscape lies a deeper history full of achievements, mysteries, and stories that we're only beginning to discover. California's ancient mysteries remind us that the past isn't a closed book but an ongoing investigation, one where every new piece of evidence might change our understanding of who we are and where we came from. In a state built on dreams and possibilities, perhaps that's the most appropriate legacy of all, the promise that there are always more secrets to uncover, more mysteries to solve, and more reasons to keep looking beneath the surface of what we think we know. The Golden State keeps its secrets well, but for those willing to look, willing to question, and willing to imagine, those secrets are slowly, tantalizingly being revealed. And the most exciting discoveries might still be waiting, buried in the desert sand or hidden in a cave, ready to change everything we thought we knew about California's incredible past.